Again, Erev Shabbos, everybody. Welcome to Jerry's Corona Contemplations. Baruch Shechianu v'kimonu v'gianu lazman hazeh. To begin, once again, studying Parshat HaShavua, the Torah, right from the top, from the beginning. So, in the beginning, we are taking it from Breishit. So, this week, I want to touch on something a little bit controversial. But it's something that I've been thinking about, and that is very poignant and timely. So we will discuss the creation story from the view of the Rambam and others. And the big question that we always ask, and that many before me have asked, is the creation story to be taken literally? In other words, is it actual or is it allegory? In many circles, even asking that question is considered heresy, but those who know me know that I don't shy away from such things, and it's something that really needs to be discussed. So, or not, but I feel that many people have become how shall we say, captives to the little Medrash says, and these stories that were taught in elementary school, and for some reason it never kind of worked its way past that. But according to the Rambam and Rav Sadia Gaon and many other bigger shoulders than mine, the creation story is not to be learned literally. Was there an Adam? Was there a Chava? We don't really know. But the bottom line is the Torah is teaching us, once again, the Torah is teaching us lessons by the use of the creation story. So, was the world actually created in 6 days as we know days today? Almost certainly not. We know from science that the world came about over a period of an infinite amount of time as we understand time. And we also have to understand that God exists independent of time. So when the Torah says, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was tohu vavohu. Tohu vavohu means a mix of primordial ooze, and it was formed into the beautiful universe that we know now, and actually that we really don't know, because we can't really get much further than the moon or Mars, and we know that the universe is infinite, and of course that evolved over a very long period of time to where we now exist. So how do we understand it? How do we understand time? How do we understand the whole idea of the creation of heaven, earth, the seas, the land, and the animals, and so on and so forth? So we have to take a look at it with some fresh eyes and understand exactly what the Torah is trying to tell us. In the words of the Rambam and the rationalist school of Judaism, if the Torah does not make sense in terms of science, or if science does not make sense in the terms of the Torah, then either A, you're interpreting the Torah incorrectly, or you're not understanding science correctly, because as Rav Miller Zatzal used to say, science really should be taught in the morning as part of the Torah classes, because the science is how God runs the world. It's part and parcel of Torah. They cannot exist independent of one another, because the way we understand science is a very, very small glimpse into the workings of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, now, let's actually move on to the whole Adam and Chava and the snake and what's really going on here. So, the Torah tells us God created humankind. He originally created them as one being, right? They Zachar unekeva bara otam. They were originally created as one being, and then they were separated. Did God make a mistake? No, of course not. He's teaching us something. Man and woman were created to be one being. And that is why the Torah tells us, Al Kain Yazov Ish es his father and his mother es imo v'es aviv v'yidbak beishto, right? We human beings are meant to be, a man and a woman are meant to be one being. To that end, the Torah tells us that they were originally created as one being, not because God messed up, chas v'shalom, God forbid. God can't mess up, right? But he's teaching us something. So what are these different parts? So there is the intellect, there is the physical, and then there is the desire. Almost Freudian. The id, the ego, and the superego, okay? But it actually goes a little bit deeper than that. And believe me, in this 10-minute, maybe 20-minute sheer, I'm not going to be able to even scratch the surface of what we're talking about here. But, so we know the whole story of Adam, Chava, the fruit of the tree, the snake, and so on and so forth. So really what's going on here? Adam and Chava, the synthesis of Ruchniut and Gashmiut, the synthesis of the physical and the spiritual. Along comes the Nachash, the snake. Who is the Nachash? The Satan. My wife Ruchi pointed out something beautiful. The word Nachash and the word Satan are essentially the same letters except for one. The Chet of Nachash and the Tet of Satan. Otherwise it's the Nun and the Shin. They're exactly the same. What is the difference between Chet and Tet? One. Aleph. Chet, Tet, Aleph, Chet. That's the Nachash. The Nachash brings the Satan. And when you add that Aleph, you have Chet, the sin. The original sin. This is the original sin. What causes the original sin? Desire. So when you have Adam and Chava, when you have Ish v'Isha, Shechina shruya beineihem, Shalom shruya beineihem. When you have the Ish and the Isha, and you take the Yud from the Ish and the Hey from Isha, and you put it together, what's that? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you take out the Yud and the Hey, right, you're left with Eish. What is the Eish? The fire of desire, the Nachash, the Satan. That's the desire to do the thing that is so tempting. It almost sounds like an episode of Lucifer, right? It's so tempting, and once you take Hashem out of the picture, then what you have is sin, and when you have sin, you have Eish. Right? This is what we're being taught here. Whether or not there was an actual Adam Harishon, or whether or not there was an actual Chava, doesn't really matter. What matters is the lesson that the Torah is telling us. So, when the desire is klape one another, when a man and a woman together in the building of a home desire one another, they create. Wait a second, they create. Who is that like? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? We're taught on Yom Kippur to emulate Hashem. How do we emulate Hashem? We create. Our desires should be for our husband and our wife, for one another. Our desires should be kosher fun. Totally okay to have fun. As a matter of fact, in some cases, you make a bracha on fun. But it has to be the kosher kind. It's when that Nachash gets in there and slithers around and say, come on, you know you want to do it. That's where the chait comes in, right? And the snake is the personification of Satan in the world. It's the desire and temptation. And that is what we are being taught right from the outset, right in the beginning. One of the first lessons. What's the first lesson? Peru Ravu, be fruitful and multiply. How do you do that? With one another. But when the Nachash, and then we could get into Lilith and the demons, and there's I promise you, Rabbos, I am not even scratching the surface here. Right? But once that comes in, that's where everything starts to go sideways. I know it wasn't an apple, and we don't know what the fruit was. Maybe it was an etrog. It doesn't really matter what it was, and it doesn't even matter if it even existed IRL in real life. But it's the forbidden fruit. It's an allegory. It's that thing that you want that you're not allowed to have, and then in comes this Nachash, the Satan, to tell you, it's no big deal. Except that it is. And then, of course, what happens? Expulsion from Eden, east of Eden, right? They're sent out of Eden. Where's Eden? Not in this world, obviously, right? Eden is this, is actually part of Olam Haba. It's part of the next world, the spiritual realm. So again, it's not like it actually occurred on this earth as we understand it. And again, there is a heck of a lot more that we don't understand than what we do understand. I saw a beautiful meme on Facebook. It's very odd that you can say beautiful meme and Facebook in the same sentence, but it said, the older I get, what I've learned is how much I don't know, or some, I'm paraphrasing, but the older I get, the more I know, the more I realize how little I know. And that's really about what we do not understand about this world and about this universe. But what we are being taught here is, of course, that Adam and Chava, humanity was sent out of Eden. In other words, they were sent to earth, to this plane that we are on right now, this plane of existence, la'avda u'lashamra, to work it. And of course that was used originally in terms of Eden itself. But Hashem put humankind on this physical planet in order to work the land, right? Beziat apecha tochal lechem, and labor pains and all this. Why? So again, did God not know that there would be the original sin? Of course he knew. This is all a lesson. It's all an allegory to teach us that our job on this earth is to take our intellect, R-E, our soul, or rather, I-E, our soul, and which is the ruchniat, and our gashmiat, our physicality, and blend them to become the perfect synthesis of the two, the material and the spiritual. That's why we were sent out of Eden, why we were sent out of Olam Haba, from the spiritual realm to the physical realm. And there are all these allegories about the cherubs, the kruvim, and the lahat hamitapechet, the whole idea of guarding our way back to where? Eden, where? Olam Haba. We only get there when we shed the physicality, and all that's left is the spiritual. Then we can get past the fiery sword and back to the land of Eden, back to Olam Haba. But while we are here on this level, while we are here in Olam Hazeh, I have a furry friend who's visiting me, while we are here on this plane of existence, our job is to infuse our physicality, our time on this earth, with our intellect, our neshama. Psyche is soul in Latin, keep that in mind. to take our soul and infuse our physicality with spirituality, and to take that entire thing. Sorry, I sound a little like Joe Biden there. To take that the entire physicality of this world and raise it. L'taken olam b'malchut Shaddai. Don't forget the rest of the pasuk. Right? It's not just tikkun olam into some liberal utopia. It's tikkun olam b'malchut Shaddai, and that is our job on this world. Rabosai Shabbos Makara Brocha. I hope I've given you a little bit of an insight into what Parshat Breishit is about. Again, like I said, I didn't even scratch the surface, but hopefully it's something to think about. Ein Yisrael Negolin Ela B'Zchut HaShabbat. In order to get a better spot in Olam Haba, Rabosai, Shabbos, the seventh day, meaning the seventh sphere. That's where we need to go. So take the Shabbos. Don't roll on Shabbos. Enjoy Shabbos. Time with your family. Do a mitzvah. Say a Dvar Torah. Sing a Zmira. Join us back here next week for Parshat Noach. It's going to rain, hopefully. And have an absolutely wonderful Shabbat. Enjoy. Thank you for joining us.